I had to get out of my dad's house last year. We were butting heads hard, and I just had to move. I found a deal subletting this rental cabin for a couple of months. The actual renter was having his own personal issues and left. So I'll just call him my landlord to make it easier. The cabin was perfect for my situation, an entire unit paid month to month. It sat at the end of a dirt road with a few other cabins. One was vacant, and I knew people lived in the others. But I'd never met them. The cabin itself was weird. It was technically 2 floors. A small kitchen and a decent-sized living space, and the 1 bedroom to get to the bedroom. You had to climb this little flight of stairs and open a quirky hatch on the floor. That was the door. The only real problem was, this hatch didn't have a lock. I'd already been there for a month and had just paid for the second. I work 12-hour shifts sometimes, and when I get home, I'm completely exhausted. This was one of those nights. I got home, made a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and a protein shake, and went straight to bed. I always shut the hatch. I just feel uncomfortable having the entrance to my bedroom open. It makes me feel exposed. I was watching TV in bed when I heard it, a voice from down below. "Who's up there?" My heart stopped. I shot upright and grabbed the remote, killing the TV's sound. The silence was absolute. It sounded like it came from inside the house. But maybe, just maybe, it was from outside. I crawled over to the circular window above my bed. I didn't see anyone, but it was pitch black out. "Who's there?" I called out. Nothing. Just deafening silence. My heart was pounding, but I got off the bed and put my hand on the hatch handle. I lifted the heavy door and looked down the dark staircase. I actually called out my dad's name, thinking maybe he'd come over for some reason. No response. I was extremely scared, but I walked downstairs. I flicked on the living room lights. As I expected, no one was there. I was still chalking this up to someone outside. I turned on the front outside light, looked out the windows, and saw nothing. I turned off the living room light and climbed the stairs back to my bedroom, shutting the hatch behind me. I was wide awake now. So I turned the TV back on. Not even 5 minutes later, I heard it. Pound, pound, pound. Someone was pounding on the underside of the bedroom hatch. They sounded angry, like they were trying to scare me. If there was any doubt before, it was gone. Someone was in the house. I left the TV on and just stayed completely motionless. I was genuinely too scared to move an inch. The scariest part was knowing that whoever was down there could easily open that door. There was no lock. I just laid there, silent, for about 20 minutes, just listening. Once I felt comfortable enough to move, I looked for my phone, and, of course, of all times, it wasn't on my nightstand. I couldn't find it. I must have left it downstairs. I opened the hatch and looked down. The constantly changing light from the TV screen lit up just a little bit of the living room. I went down the stairs as quietly as I could. When I got to the bottom, I didn't turn on any lights. I just ran straight out the back door, barefoot. I sprinted to the nearest neighbor's house, the one I knew people lived in. Their lights were on. I knocked on the door a bunch of times. Then I noticed someone at the window right next to the door, just looking at me. I don't know how long they'd been standing there, watching me. I yelled through the glass, "I'm your neighbor. Someone is in my house. I need a phone to call the police." He definitely heard me, but he just stared. He didn't move, didn't respond. He just creepily watched me. I started to back away from the door. A new kind of fear creeping in. What if this guy had something to do with it? I had no other choice. I went back to my rental. The back door was still unlocked, just as I'd left it. I went inside and turned on every single light. I looked for an intruder, but mostly, I looked for my phone. I finally thought to check my car. There it was. I'd been so tired I left it in the center console. I went back inside. The TV was still on in the bedroom. I climbed the stairs, and when I got to the top, I saw someone sitting on my bed. It was a man, and he was just staring at the TV. I screamed. He turned his head slowly to look at me. Before I could see anything else, I ran back down the stairs and outside to my car. I locked the doors and, now with my phone, finally called 911. I sat there, watching the house, on the line with the operator. That's when I saw someone walking past the backyard of the house, disappearing into the woods. I told the operator when the police arrived. The officer checked the house. It was empty. He asked if I had any other places to stay. I swallowed my pride and went back to my dad's house for the night. I returned the next day, collected the rest of my stuff, and got out of there for good. Luckily, the landlord agreed to give me some of my money back. But the weirdest part, he asked me what the man looked like. After I told him, he didn't ask a single other question. That, to me, is pretty sus. The creepy neighbor, the landlord's urgent need to move out, the guy in my house. Maybe it was all connected. Back in 2013, it was a Tuesday night, round 11 p.m. My car was in the shop, so I was forced to walk the 3 miles home from work. The walk was barely an hour, so I was always home before midnight. But in my tiny southern Indiana town, the roads are completely dead after 10. The only vehicles you ever see are truckers heading to Indianapolis. And that night, my street was empty. I was about a mile in when I turned onto a dirt road. My house was off the beaten path, so I had to take these roads through the forest. As I was turning, I heard an engine in the distance, getting closer, but very slowly. I saw a van about a quarter mile down the main road I just left, moving at a crawl without its lights on. At first, it didn't strike me as weird. We have a cheap dealership that sells junkers, so I just assumed this guy had broken headlights. I kept walking down my side road. About 5 seconds later, I jumped when I heard the van's engine roar. It sped up really fast, and its lights flashed on, blinding bright. I was startled, but not worried. Until it got closer to my turn, about 500 feet away. The van turned off its lights again and slowed right down. Now I was officially creeped out. I started walking faster, constantly turning back to see if I was being followed. Then my suspicion became reality. The van turned onto my dirt road. It was only about 500 feet from me, so I started to walk a lot faster. I didn't want to look back, but I did, just to be safe. What I saw frightened every bone in my body. The van was stopped. Both the passenger and driver's doors were open. At that point, I ran for my life down the dirt road. I heard what I'm positive was a gunshot not far away. I really thought this was how I was going to die. I made a quick turn into the surrounding forest and hid behind a big rock. I was covering my mouth, trying not to make any sound. I heard what sounded like a middle-aged man say, "I think she went into the woods." And then, to my horror, I heard what sounded like 3 young girls. One of them responded, "Okay, sir. I'll see if we can find her." Now I wasn't just fearing for my life. I was worrying. I was about to be forced into whatever sick group this was. Then I heard the man say, "Whoever finds her doesn't have to drink the blood tonight." A million thoughts ran through my head. Is this some sort of satanic cult? Are these girls kidnapped? Will I become one of them? I spent what felt like an eternity behind that rock, terrified of every sound. Then, to my relief, I heard cop sirens nearby. I stayed put until I saw the red and blue lights right outside the forest. I ran out, screaming for help. The cops came to me. "Ma'am," one said, "do you know about this body?" I was confused. "What body?" Then I saw, in front of the cop car, the most gruesome thing I will ever see. A naked young woman, gutted, blood everywhere. The van was nowhere in sight. I explained everything to the cops: the van, the man, the girls who had to drink the blood. The cops said they'd look into it and were nice enough to drive me home. That night, I couldn't sleep. I just kept looking out my window, and I saw the van, the same one. It was driving slowly, without its lights, down my street. This time, I was smart. I wrote down the license plate. I called the cops immediately, told them what I saw, and gave them the number as expected. When the cops came, the van was long gone. But what they told me is what will horrify me to this day. The cops said, "We checked the license plate number. It's a plate registered in South Dakota. But the thing is, we checked with other precincts around the country, and they've gotten reports tonight that there was also a suspicious van with that exact same license plate. One in Vermont, one in Nevada, one in Alaska, and one in Texas." They said they'd call if they got any more information. The cops left. I never got a call. I don't really believe in paranormal. My best guess is that it was some sort of cult that used fake license plates to do their sick things across the country. But I guess I'll never know. I moved out of Indiana after that. Now I make sure when I see something suspicious, I bolt. My wife, Gianna, and I live a normal life, normal jobs, normal neighbors, the whole setup, but something happened a while back that we still can't explain, and it still scares us. It was a standard work day. We grabbed dinner out, got back around 9 p.m. We were tired. By 10, we were in bed, watching our show, ready to shut the lights off. Then the phone rang. Gianna looked over at the clock, then at me. "Don't answer it. Anyone calling this late? It's just bad news." I agreed with her. But that's exactly why I felt I had to pick it up. What if it was family, an emergency? I reached for our old landline on the nightstand, but it stopped ringing just before I grabbed it. That old thing was trash. The caller ID disappeared the second it stopped. Oh well, wrong number. A few minutes later, it rang again. I snatched it and looked at the screen. It said, "No number." Gianna and I just looked at each other. Who calls past 10 from a blocked number? I let it ring, it stopped, and immediately it rang a third time, insistent. "Okay, this has to be an emergency," I said, and finally picked up. "Hello," it was my neighbor. "Al, do you know that man standing out in front of your house?" "What are you talking about, El?" "Go outside," he said, just like that, and hung up. I stared at the receiver. Gianna's face was pale. "Don't go out there," she whispered. "What did he say?" "He said there's someone outside. I'm just going to look." I went downstairs and moved the curtain a bit. Nothing, just our dark lawn. I opened the front door, then the storm door, and stepped onto the porch. The air was cool. I looked around, even into the bushes right by the house. Nobody. I got annoyed. What was this? El wasn't the type to pull a late-night prank. He's a really low-key guy. I went back to bed and told Gianna no one was there. El must be messing with us. She was just as confused as I was. "That's bizarre. Call him back." I did. It went straight to voicemail. "Hey, El, what was that about? Give me a call back." The second I put the phone down, it rang again. My heart jumped. Unknown caller, again. I grabbed it. "Hello," it was El again, before I could even say his name. He spoke in this calm, slow voice. "Go outside. There's someone standing outside your house." Then he hung up. "All right? What the hell is going on?" I said out loud, getting up again. I told Gianna to wait here. My pulse racing, I ran downstairs and went straight to the window, yanking the curtain back. This time I saw him. A man was standing right at the end of our walkway, where it met the sidewalk. He was wearing a hood, pulled low. I couldn't see a face, just shadow, just blackness. I was honestly shaken. I ripped the front door open and yelled, "Hey, can I help you?" The man just stood there, didn't move a muscle. "I'm calling the police," I shouted, my voice cracking a little as I said it. I heard the house phone ringing again from the kitchen. I slammed the front door and locked it. Ran to the kitchen phone and looked at the caller ID. This time, it showed Al's actual number. My stomach twisted. I picked it up. "El, hey," he said. His voice was completely normal. "I just got your voicemail. What was that about? I didn't call you." My blood ran cold. "What, El? You just called me twice. You told me there was a man standing outside my house. He sounded totally confused. What? No. I didn't. I'm looking out my window right now. I don't see anyone outside your house. I scrambled back to the front window while he was still on the line. The hooded man was gone. I got back on the phone and demanded Al tell me if this was a joke. I told him we'd have a serious problem if it was. He swore up and down it wasn't him. That he's not some prankster. He sounded genuinely baffled. I had to put him on speaker so Gianna, who'd come halfway down the stairs, could vouch for me that I wasn't crazy. He did the same, putting his wife on to vouch for him. We were all just confused and terrified. In the end, what could he say? We hung up. I was still horrified. I had to go back downstairs one last time to hang up the kitchen phone properly. I looked outside again. The walkway was empty. We never, ever figured out what happened that night, none of us.